Zinfandel, it just seems to be the ultimate classic hamburger wine. And
I
there,
completely agree.
as he said, reaching for a wine, I think. But why do you think it works so well with burgers?
I mean, it's a great food wine. It's very similar to how Sauvignon Blanc is a great food wine. So with Zinfandel, what I find is it has this spice to it. Most of the time, food overpowers wine.
Yeah.
And so with the spice in Zinfandel, usually maybe a little teeny bit of residual sugar or a lot of sweet fruit, it stands up to all the flavors and the fats and salts in food.
Good explanation.
Do you have a thirst to learn about wine? Do you love stories about wonderfully obsessive people, hauntingly beautiful places, and amusingly awkward social situations? Well, that's the blend here on the Unreserved Wine Talk podcast. I'm your host, Natalie McLean, and each week I share with you unfiltered conversations with celebrities in the wine world, as well as confessions from my own tipsy journey as I write my third book on this subject. I'm so glad you're here. Now pass me that bottle, please, and let's get started.
Welcome to episode 106. How do you pair wine with different types of burgers, from green chili and jack cheese to pickled veggies with spicy aioli? What is it about Napa Valley that gives us such a wide variety of styles of wine? And why does harvest time often ignite a passion for wine and a career in wine? That's exactly what you'll discover in this episode of the Unreserved Wine Talk podcast. I'm chatting with winemaker Joel Gott, who joins me from his winery and home in Napa Valley. This conversation took place on my Facebook Live video show several years ago, so please keep that in mind as the context for Joel's comments. In the show notes, you'll find links to the wines we tasted, the video version of this chat, where you can find me on Facebook Live every second Wednesday at 7 p.m., and how you can join me in a free online wine and food pairing class. That's all in the show notes at nataliemclain.com/106. Now, on a personal note, before we dive into the show, when I was 4 years old, I lived with my cousin Mikey, who was 3. His mother and mine, sisters, rented a row house together in Kitchener. Our moms worked full-time, so we had a sitter named Mrs. Karen. She would fall asleep on the sofa every afternoon watching a soap opera called The Edge of Night. That allowed Mikey and me to get up to monkey business, including nipping into extra pieces of bread. She discovered our crime one day and threatened to call the cops. The next day, the undeterred recidivists did it again, but this time she picked up the phone and started talking to Santa. Well, it was one thing to do hard time for bread, but a whole other world of hurt if Santa wasn't going to come that year. We gave up on the bread until December 26th. Those are my heartwarming holiday memories. Do you have a holiday memory? Let me know. Okay, on with the show. Our guest purchased a few tons of Zinfandel in 1996 with the help of his then-girlfriend, now wife, and winemaker at Joseph Phelps Winery. Her name is Sarah. And they produced their first vintage of wine. It received wide praise from critics, which was enough encouragement, all the encouragement, in fact, he needed to produce additional varietals. Our guest and his brother also own 7 gourmet burger restaurants in California that have now become famous among foodies. And our guest is Joel Gott, winemaker, who joins me live now from his winery in California. Hello, Joel.
Good evening. How are
All
you?
right. I'm great. Thank you. Okay, let's give it a start here. Before we sort of take the deep dive, can you remember your favorite childhood moment on the family vineyard? Because you grew up in a wine family, right?
Yeah, I grew up on a ranch where my dad had a winery and we had 100 and some acres of vineyard. And being a little boy on a ranch like that, probably the favorite memory is going to be something about a tractor, probably in a vineyard.
Okay. So you were always drawn to like the tractors and the vehicles.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. And then do you remember the moment when you wanted to become a winemaker yourself? Like you realized, I really want to make wine.
Moment, it was more along the lines of, as a late teenager, getting summertime jobs working in wineries that wasn't working for my father. And then working at a winery called Kenwood Vineyards when I was 19. It was really the moment in which I really enjoyed it. So I always found it fascinating, and I love harvest time. To me, that was always the action time of the year. And that's what drew me in and kept me there.
Okay, perfect. We know that Napa Valley has great soils and climate, but maybe you could share with us something we don't know when it comes to Napa Valley and wine.
I could go a million different directions there. I would say that your first comment, though, the climate in Napa is really what makes Napa Valley this ideal viticulture area. And so that drives everything. And, the thing that we're experiencing now in Napa is it's become such a heavy tourist destination, and people that are wealthier having their second or third or fourth home there. And so there's quite a bit of development there, and actually some really fascinating wineries being built. Architecturally, it's incredible. And also for the guest experience. I mean, some of the things that have been built in the last 10 years are just mind boggling. Wineries all within caves, unbelievable sized wineries that have architects from all over the world working on them. And it's almost as if you're at a museum.
Huh, wow. That is amazing. And I suppose there's lots of great restaurants too, like winery restaurants.
Yeah, the restaurant scene in Napa Valley is amazing. We're lucky, we're really spread out over 4 towns, town of Napa, then the town of St. Helena and Calistoga and Yountville. Yountville is the most famous of the towns for food, where the French Laundry is, where Thomas Keller has 3 restaurants, French Laundry, Bouchon, and Ad Hoc. And it's really an idealistic town. And in that town, there's several other great restaurants. The food scene in St. Helena even just got better. That's where we're based. There's a new restaurant there called Charter Oak, which is casual restaurant of a 3-star Michelin chef named Christopher Castal. And it's really, it's a fascinating place to go. I mean, it's theatrical. It's fun.
What do you mean by theatrical?
There's no silverware on the table. You have your own drawer as if your house for each guest that has all of your silverware and extra napkins in it. All the drinks come in big shared pitchers. It's really neat. I mean, it's just fun. It's a much different dining experience than you would expect when you go into this place that has a super famous chef cooking in it, and an amazing old brick building that was built in the 1800s. It's just fun. It's a much livelier, different environment.
Okay, so I do want to get to the burgers because we've just done the food thing, but let me talk a little bit more about the wine before we dive into that. So, can you take us maybe to the worst moment of your career, like something where it didn't go right, but you learned from it, or whatever you want to touch on there?
Sure. The 1996 Zinfandel, we bottled it, and we've got probably the best review ever from Robert Parker, shipped all the wine out, and within a month it re-fermented in the bottle.
Oh,
So
no.
then I had to call our distributors or agents and say, listen, the wine's going to start leaking out of the top and foaming like a soda. And they said, no, we're not shipping it back to you. You just got this incredible review. I'm like, hey, trust me, you don't want the. They just thought for sure I wanted it back to sell it to somebody else or something. That was a low point.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you learned from that. Was there just leftover yeast, or what was happening there?
There was a little crack in the bowl which the wine sits in as it fills into the bottles. It's called a filler bowl on a bottling line. And in there, a little bit of a re-fermentation had started. So we started fermenting the wine as we put it in the bottles. So then it would sit there until somewhere along the shipping route it gets warm, and then it turned into a foaming grape soda. Trust me, it was special. We had another one time where we had wine. We make Tetra Pak wine called Bandit.
Yes.
And they're 1 liter Tetra Paks. My 2 partners, Charles Beeler and Roger Scomeni, and I, we shipped a load of this off to the East Coast. And somewhere along the line, they discovered that the glue, because remember, these are it's like what you'd buy soy milk in a Tetra Pak, right? Soft
Right.
box.
Yeah.
The glue didn't work with the wine because the wine was too acidic.
Oh, no.
So we knew we were shipping this truck across the country of 1,000 cases, and it was a time bomb because eventually the wine would eat through the cap. So sure enough, We got a hold of the distributor. They turned the truck around and we couldn't get rid of the wine. Nobody would let us dump it. So we had to ship it all the way back to California to find a place to get rid of it. It was a disaster.
Oh my gosh. Wow. What a great story. All right. So now take us to the best moment of your wine career so far. I'm sure there'll be more to come, Joel, but what's been the sort of the highlight so far?
So many along the years. We've been so fortunate. I would say that back in 2003, those two same partners, Charles Beeler and Roger Scomeni, and I started making jug wine. I mean, it was just for fun. They were 1 liter jugs of Zinfandel and Cabernet from Napa, and we were just having a great time, and we couldn't believe it. I call it the one-hit wonder. Everybody wanted it, and we went from 0 to 100,000 cases within 1 year. We couldn't even make enough. I mean, people wanted more than that. It was like almost like a collector item. And that was really a wild experience. I'd never seen anything like that in the wine industry. It was the high end of the low end or the low end of the high end. And, it was this funny little juxtaposition. That was a great moment. Another one was I was with my wife, Sarah, and we were at the Oakland airport flying to Hawaii for vacation. And I picked up a New York Times to read on the flight. It's like a 4.5 hour, 5-hour flight. About halfway over the Pacific, I was paging through the New York Times, and there was a picture of me and a wine review that was the best wine review we probably ever had.
That's nice.
The New York Times has so much power.
Yeah.
And, no cell phones, no nothing, no connectivity. So I couldn't tell anybody. That was a pretty exciting moment.
That's fantastic. Joel, is that wine that you just talked about, the story before the last one, is that connected with the Three Thieves or?
Correct. That is the Three Thieves.
Okay. And is there anything else you want to say about the Three Thieves? I have the Pinot Grigio here.
Oh, good. Our partner Charles describes it the best. There's this theory out there that no matter where it's not a theory, it's a proven fact, but wherever you are, right, depending upon what Mother Nature has in the weather, strawberries might be better, right? Just it's like the perfect ripening season for. We have that same thing in grapes. So not every year each vineyard ripens the same way. And so the way that we make the Three Thieves wine is we're allowed to have access to Trinchero. They're a 20 million case winery in Napa Valley, and we're allowed to select different vineyards from throughout their whole program that spans the state of California for these, as we would call it, the angel share lots. And we put together small blends like the Pinot Grigio and the Chardonnay and the Cabernet. And they're for their price point, because they're fairly inexpensive wines. I don't know the conversion into Canadian retail, but they really are exceptional wines, especially for their price point.
That's great. Stephen Andrews, who are the Three Thieves and what did they steal? Joel.
So we started that in 2002 was when we formed that little company. We started making wine in 2003 out of the 2002 vintage. Charles Beeler is a French wine producer. He actually lives in Manhattan and produces wine in France, California, and the state of Washington, as well as in Spain. He's most known for Beeler family Rosé, which I'm sure you can find in most places, as well as he makes wine in the state of Washington under the Charles and Charles label. And then we make Three Thieves wines together and the show wines together as well. Roger Scomeni is originally from Wisconsin, but now lives in Boonville, California, which is a Pinot Noir growing region in Mendocino County, north of Napa Valley and Sonoma Valley. He has several labels, most notably Signal Ridge label, and makes a lot of wine as well in Europe and imports it into the US. And so the three of us were just three wine friends and thought it would be fun to make some inexpensive wine. And we couldn't think of a better name, but Three Thieves, because it was inexpensive wine as if we were almost stealing it. And we started off with jug wine, and then we moved to Tetra Pak wine, which both are still around. Well, the jugs are not anymore. The jugs are now into 750s. And Tetra Pak wine and the show wines, which are from California and from Argentina.
Awesome. So while we're on that theme then, since this is a steal of a wine, but I'm going to start with the Three Thieves Pinot Grigio. Are there any sort of other tasting notes or anything else you want to say about this wine, Joel?
Well, I find the Pinot Grigio is really interesting because it's from the Delta region. So if you were to look at a California map, it's between San Francisco and town of Napa. If you head directly east, that's where the Delta area is. So it's the wind passage between the Central Valley and the coastline. It's the
Hmm.
lowest point. There's no mountains. So what you end up with is a much cooler temperature, especially in the evenings.
Yeah.
So it elongates a ripening process. We get more fully ripened, mature fruit.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's so fresh and crisp. Nice racy acidity for seafood, shellfish, vegetarian, a whole lot of things. And of course, an aperitif would be great. All right. So let's go on to the other Three Thieves wine while we're on that subject. I've got the Cabernet Sauvignon, Joel,
Oh,
and maybe you
great.
can talk a little bit about that one.
Yeah, the Cabernet is great. Again, it's a few unique growing regions. So Paso Robles, out in an area called Borden, which is east of the Central Valley in the lower foothills, Mendocino County. So we work with multiple counties
Yeah.
to be able to blend them together to try to get the complexity, the concentration together. Because that's really what we're looking for is a balance of acid, tannin, sweet fruit.
Okay, cool. And we should segue in. I want to start pairing these with burgers. Tell us a bit about the background of your burger restaurants.
Sure. In 1999, my brother and I leased an old defunct hamburger stand in St. Helena called Taylor's Refresher. We tore it to the ground, rebuilt it like it never looked before, brought it back up. So from 1999 to 2010, it was called Taylor's Refresher. And then we had somebody that wanted the Taylor's name more than we did. So there was a legal issue with them wanting the name. So we let them go with the name and we changed the name to Gott's Roadside. How do I describe it? We're kind of like that term I used before, we're the low end of the high end or the high end of the low end.
Uh-huh.
And so we're this funny little hamburger stand. We have 7 of them just in the San Francisco Bay Area, all with the same menu. We're known for fish, we're known for salads, we're known for burgers. It's just this great casual fast service, if you would, fresh food place. It's great. I mean, you can go there and one person has a salad, the next person has poke tacos, somebody has mahi tacos or something like that. And 2 of us have hamburgers.
Yeah. I was reading a bit about these restaurants. It's all sustainable and the ingredients are really important and it's Neiman Ranch beef, something like that.
Correct. All out of Colorado, yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's pretty amazing what you're doing with the ingredients themselves. And I imagine you have a pretty extensive California wine list.
Yes, we have one German wine on there right now, one Riesling. Our number one by the glass wine is actually Charles's Provençal Rosé.
Okay.
We sell more of that than any other wine. So, and then number 2, of course, is Sauvignon Blanc.
There you go. That's a good pairing. And when I saw pictures of this restaurant, it reminded me of like that sitcom Happy Days, like the
Yep.
takeout with the gals on roller skates and I don't know, or Dairy Queen, whatever. It really has that old retro vibe in a cool way.
Yeah, the one in St. Helena is the one that has the old look to it. That's the original
Okay.
one. If you
Okay.
go to the other ones, it's much more modern,
Oh,
more
all
like an
right.
Earl's.
Oh, and Earl's. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So, of your burgers, well, the Cabernet, I'm sure, is an easy match to a lot of the burgers you have on the menu, but is there a specific burger you'd put this Three Thieves Cabernet Sauvignon with?
I would say we'll be conservative. We'll say because there's other ones that are more of a Zinfandel type burgers. Cabernet might just be perfect for just a plain cheeseburger. Nothing too exotic, not too much acid in it, so the wine will be a good balance to it.
Okay, cool.
Now,
And
if you want to talk Zinfandel, then maybe like a kimchi burger or something. The Zinfandel can stand up to some fermented cabbage and kimchi.
kimchi. Oh, wow. What else is on that kimchi burger?
There are some pickled vegetables, kimchi, and this spicy aioli that's really out of this world.
Oh, God, that sounds so good. And then you have a green chili burger, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
roasted Anaheim chili that's peeled and then
Oh,
jack cheese melted over the top of it.
oh dear. And what would you pair with that?
Oh yeah, but now we're on the pairing. We'll go back to our first guest that was drinking the
Yes.
Merlot. The
Yes.
chili's not spicy, so I'd go back to Zinfandel again, or our by the glass Zin is Turley Juvenile Zin. So it's
Oh,
so perfect with burgers because it stands up to any sort of spice and heat and fat in the meat.
oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Zinfandel, it just seems to be the ultimate classic hamburger wine. And
I
there,
completely agree.
as he said, reaching for a wine, I think. But why do you think it works so well with burgers?
I mean, it's a great food wine. It's very similar to how Sauvignon Blanc is a great food wine. So with Zinfandel, what I find is it has this spice to it. Most of the time, food overpowers wine.
Yeah.
And so with the spice in Zinfandel, usually maybe a little teeny bit of residual sugar or a lot of sweet fruit, it stands up to all the flavors and the fats and salts in food.
Good explanation. So let us go on to the Joel Gott line. Where should we start, Joel? Would it be with the Sauvignon Blanc or the Unoaked Chardonnay?
I go Sauvignon Blanc for sure.
Okay, excellent. Let's start with that. And maybe you can give us a bit of the backstory on this one and tasting notes, that sort of thing.
Well, this is by far the wine that my wife, Sarah, and I drink the most of. We love it. It's probably the most complicated wine we make. It's also
really?
the expensive wine that we make. It's a balance of acid and sweet fruit with this minerality. It's sourced from 6 different counties around California, from Santa Barbara County, being the further south, Monterey County, coming up to Sonoma, Napa, Mendocino, and Lake County. And the reason that we work in all these different areas is what we're looking for is every vineyard contributes in a different way and in a blend. So we take the Monterey fruit, which is very green and New Zealand-like, and we blend it with the Lake County that's very mineral-driven or European in style, with the Napa that has the viscosity, the Sonoma fruit that has the sweet fruit, the Santa Barbara, which is just wide, broad style Sauvignon Blanc. So by blending all these different vineyards together, we end up with what we feel is a very complete wine. If you had a checklist, you're checking off all the boxes as you go down: mouthfeel, sweet fruit, acid, balance, and there's 0 residual sugar in it. So you're not covering up any mistakes with sweetness.
It's beautiful.
To us, the wine is, it's this great balance. It goes so well with food.
Yeah.
It's light. Its alcohol is not very high on it. Again, it's by far our favorite wine to drink.
It's beautiful. And there's sort of that racy acidity, but it's not an acidic attack. It's not green or anything. It's just really balanced and juicy for food. You mentioned one, I think. Which hamburgers would you put with this one?
I'd probably go right over to fish category.
Oh, the fish tacos.
I'd have like Baja tacos or poke tacos or a salad or something.
Oh, that would be lovely.
I think the burgers will pretty much wipe out the Sauvignon Blanc.
That's true. That's true. So we've done the Sauvignon Blanc. Let's go on to the Chardonnay, the Unoaked Chardonnay, another very fresh wine. Maybe you can tell us a bit about that one.
Yeah. So the Unoaked Chardonnay, my wife, Sarah, was a winemaker at Joseph Phelps Winery in Napa Valley.
Which is a cult kind of wine. Yes.
One of the greatest wineries in Napa.
Yeah.
Anyhow, and so in 1999, they were making some Rhone style wines. And so they asked Sarah to go down to Australia. So we went to Australia. I tagged along with her. Mm-hmm. We saw these Unoaked Chardonnays being made on the Mornington Peninsula and just found them fascinating. Came back and started making Napa Valley Unoaked Chardonnay from Atlas Peak, which didn't sell at all. Nobody wanted Napa Valley Unoaked Chardonnay. Over the last, 19 years, we've been making it, and we've changed the location where we're growing the grapes to really find the best balance of areas to grow Chardonnay to make it more like Chablis. And now all of a sudden, Unoaked style Chardonnay has really caught on.
It is.
Now in Canada, you guys are lucky. You have a large French selection.
Yes.
We don't, our retailers and our stores in California don't have big French selections.
Okay.
So that's what we're trying to mimic.
Yeah, this is beautiful. It's got so much volume and lusciousness. It's hard to believe, though I do believe you, that it's not oaked. Like it's really mouth-filling and coating.
Yeah, the viscosity of the wine.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Just the Chardonnay grape on its own.
It's lovely.
You don't mess with it. It's pretty interesting.
That's great. Don't mess with it. It might turn out all right. This is just a gorgeous wine. Would you still go with fish tacos on that wine?
That can stand up to a little bit more. Have a grilled chicken sandwich or something along those lines.
All right, good. Anyway, let's go on to the reds. Should we start with the Cabernet or the Merlot first?
Oh, let's go to the Merlot, because the Merlot is a little bit softer, more velvety, kind of has the slightly softer palate to it.
Okay, yeah. Absolutely.
And the nice thing is we've been making Merlot for a long time, but we only started bottling it in the 2014 vintage because we always make it to add a little bit, 2, 3, 4, 5% back into the Cabernet. And we had so much demand for it, we started making Some just so that we could have it so that we would be able to do small bottling, but not take away from being able to blend it back into the Cabernet.
Oh, that is so supple. That is so smooth. As like liquid velvet. Very nice. Which burger would you put with this one?
Well, I pulled up the menu beside me because I realized I'm not fast enough to do them all off the top of my head. I'd probably do the California burger. It's fried egg and it's got Swiss cheese and bacon and arugula and balsamic onions and mayonnaise.
Oh, that sounds really good. Do you feature about 11 different burgers in the restaurants?
Yes, but as we all know in hamburger restaurants, everybody modifies them.
Oh, right. All the special requests. Yes.
So I'll have a kimchi burger with no kimchi. But can I add barbecue sauce to it? Okay, sure.
Right. That's funny. And do you think running those restaurants helps you with the winemaking aspect? Does one inform the other?
Yeah, it's a good learning curve because we're dealing with the public. And anytime you deal with the public, you're always trying to make sure you're giving what is popular. So it helps us see trends and it helps us connect. And we get to see what people drink and eat. And it's a big education.
Huh. All right. So then maybe on to the Cabernet. What would you say about the Cabernet?
It's named after my daughter, Lucy. That's why there's an 815 on it.
That's when she was born?
Yes, August 15.
Awesome.
So, the Cabernet is the one, it's our largest production wine. It's the one that we get more reviews on than anything else.
Okay.
We're known for it. My wife was the Cabernet winemaker at Joseph Phelps. So the technology that we put against making this wine is dramatic. It's made from 7 counties. There's over 40 vineyards, 60 different individual small lot fermentations. Mm-hmm. It's blended together over a year and a half. We usually bottle age it. And at this price point, nobody bottle ages wine. It probably doesn't mean anything to everybody listening to this. But in the winemaking world, you age it in a barrel to oxidize it and extract a little bit of oak flavor. You age it in a stainless steel tank to let it settle and bring out some other characteristics. You run it over screens when you drain it out of a tank to add air into it to help it age. You do all these things to age the wine, and then you put it in a bottle. And when it gets into a bottle, it also needs aging process. And so we age this for 4, 6, sometimes even longer months in a bottle before we even start shipping it.
Wow, that is fantastic. Yeah, it's a gorgeous wine. I mean, it's drinking well now, but it also could go the distance in the cellar, which is always nice to have that option.
Yeah, but every vintage is different. So you have the 15, and the 15 has more tannins and a little bit more of an edge to it. The 14 was much softer, had more volume to it, or sweet fruit up front. Okay. The 15 will age much better, as well as the 13 and the 14, the 2016 vintage. It is softer like the 14. Okay. So they all have their unique little way. And that's why I love shopping in wine stores, because I look for vintages more than I look for name brands.
Huh. That's a good thing, because you're looking for a good year, whether it's your winery or other wineries.
Correct. I mean, I love Northern Italian white wines. And so like the 15 vintage there was incredible. Huh. So I'm always hunting out those, or I'm hunting out Burgundies from the 14 vintage, or, goofy stuff I read about or drink.
That's a good tip. That's a really good tip. Is there something that you feel that you are wrong about when it comes to making wine? Something you changed your mind about, Joel, over the years?
Oh, I'm sure there's something that somebody's proved to me that we were wrong about. And off the top of my head, I usually try to forget all those things. I'm trying to think what it could be. I've had disasters from Tetra Pak to putting screw caps on wines to, the one thing that I would say that is for all of us that drink wine, the most frustrating thing are corks. Because there's a percentage, is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% of all the bottles we send out that has a cork in it, which is just a piece of bark from a cork tree, is bad. It's flawed. It has bacteria picked up from the tree. It won't hurt you to drink it. It just tastes moldy and nasty and barnyard-like. And, all of us in the wine business hate it because somebody out there bought a bottle of our wine. Me, I've got my name on it, so even worse. And you drink it and you go like, I never want to drink this guy's wine again. So people email us and tell us like, hey, we got a funky one, because then we send you more wine or a gift certificate or, refund your money or somehow compensate for it. But that's the hardest thing in the business. It's the thing that's out of our control.
It's true.
But corks age the wine. Whereas like with the Sauvignon Blanc, I put it in the screw cap because I want to capture the moment of time at the winery.
That's a good
And
way
so
to put
that
it.
seals it. Not only does it make it easy to drink, but it also seals it so that the aging process really slows down. Whereas a cork, the aging process continues to evolve.
Excellent way to put it. So tell me about your opinion on women winemaking teams.
This is one man's opinion, right? So my wife's winemaker, her head winemaker who runs all of the winemaking for Joel Gott Wines, her name is Elisa Jacobson. They work together at Joseph Phelps. Nicole Scomenia, our partner's daughter, who got a summer job with us a decade ago and now is our top California winemaker. And then if you go down the line, Chelsea Barrett, another female winemaker that's on the team, go down the line more. Both lab people, Karen and Jill, are both ladies. There's one guy named Tyler on the winemaking team. So this whole winemaking team consists of two guys, and the rest are all girls and all the lab interns. It's becoming a very popular school subject to study in the States, and I'm sure up in the Okinawan lakes where you got winemaking there on the West Coast. And so it's becoming a ladies' industry, which I think is great. I believe scientists, I don't know this for sure, but I believe is proven that ladies have a better sense of smell and taste than guys do, just the way that everybody's made up. So to me, we're fortunate because I have this whole ladies winemaking team, and I think it's a great thing for the industry.
Yeah, it's true. Like they are coming out with more and more studies and scientific research and proof about number of taste buds and density and so on. What else do you think that women bring to the winemaking process aside from a great palate?
Organization.
Yes.
Well, I think to answer that the best way, and the way you ask the question is, what do they bring? They bring in this other ability to blend at a smaller percentage, a higher taste level. Also, for our group, everybody in the group loves chemistry. So we're very interested in the chemistry of the wine. It's a big deal for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. There was another question I wanted to ask you about grape sourcing. Tell us about that.
So what's important in California is Canada is a wide state, right? We're a very tall state.
We're a country, but that's great.
No, it's right. I mean, it's right. State of
I'm
mind
kidding.
about grape growing, right?
Right.
And, whereas we've got microclimates like, in the Finger Lakes in New York, it's a very small appellation of area where you can grow. And so it's one climate. Whereas in California, we have everything from Mendocino all the way down the coast to Santa Barbara County. So there's so many different areas in California to grow grapes. It's almost like we have our little New Zealand, we have a little Bordeaux, we have all these little microclimates. That's why we're able to make so many of the wines that we believe have more concentration, better tannin structure, better sourcing because of the diversity in the state. We also make wines up in Oregon and in the state of Washington, but it's a much smaller footprint that we're doing that in viticulturally.
Okay. And what do you find the challenges now? You're making wines with grapes sourced in 3 states, if I understand that correctly.
Correct.
Okay. So how do you manage all of that? Because they're very different terroir, so to speak, the climate, the soils, and so on. How are you bringing that all together?
We're really bringing it together because of the team that we have. The female winemaking team, the ladies, very organized in the way that we go about it. We've got winemakers up in the state of Oregon that manage the Oregon and Washington production. We've got a winemaking office down in San Luis Obispo that manages the Paso Robles, Monterey, and Santa Barbara winemaking, an office in Santa Elena. The winery is where we're, managing our production from Lake County, Sonoma County, and Napa County. Oh, and a little bit in Mendocino too. I'm sorry.
Fantastic. I can't believe how fast this has flown by, Joel. Is there a piece of advice, wine advice, you'd like to share with people? Something they can act on this week, maybe to up their wine game or whatever?
I could go endless. You can just tell me when to stop. My favorite thing is decanting wines. You don't even need a decanter. You can use a water pitcher. You can use anything.
Okay.
Usually I find, especially with red wines or very acidic whites, is it just really opens up the wine. It takes it from one wine to another. So decanting is a big deal. Also, paying attention to vintages.
Yes, you were saying that earlier. That's an interesting way to shop by year, not by brand specifically.
Yeah. 99% of us have a mobile phone and we're in the store, right?
Yep.
Look up what were great vintages. I mean, you'd always be shocked. Like I said, I like Northern Italian whites and I buy the 15s because they're really great, tons of acid.
Okay, so it's
And then,
worth knowing some good vintages for particular regions.
yeah, and literally, you just Google it on your phone and it comes up instantly. What were the great vintages in Northern Italy for whites? And boom. And then, the other one is I'm a big believer in that price doesn't matter with everyone. So, having friends over for dinner or however you all get together to drink wine, but telling people to bring over a bottle of red wine under, name that I won't have it right in Canadian dollars, but say under 30 Canadian,
right?
And wrap it in tinfoil and pull the cork out and let everybody drink it and put funny numbers on the tinfoil. You can put your numbers 313 and yours is A. And then at the end of the night, everybody writes down which one they like the most. Nobody knows what they are. And then you kind of unveil them all. And it's a great way to not be stuck in a price point.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. It just makes it fun for everybody.
Absolutely. I love the way you de-stress and make it all informal the way it should be with wine.
I find that people worry too much about wine.
We do.
That's why I love the rosé craze that's going on right now. Rosé is so fun and light and low alcohol and fun to drink, and people aren't too worried about it. So
it's true.
It's a great thing for the industry.
Put an ice cube in it. I was just reading something the other day that said an ice cube 2 or even 3 does not change the chemical composition enough that you won't get the same flavors and aromas. Like you'd have to water that wine down so much. People should stop worrying about ice cubes.
Well, I had a frosé. You had a frosé yet?
Ooh, no. What's that?
Remember those slushy machines you'd see in the convenience store?
Yeah.
They now sell them in bars, right? And they just pour rosé. So you have your favorite Provence rosé and you pour it in the slushy machine.
Oh.
It gets it so cold, it turns it into slushy. And then you get this great, slightly frozen glass of rosé on a hot day. I mean, what'd you say? It was 30 degrees where you are, right?
Yeah, it is.
And so, I mean,
insane.
You'd have a frosé today would be pretty good.
That sounds fantastic. Wow. That sounds also like a great place to wrap up. Joel, thank you so much for spending your time here. This has been so much fun. You've dispensed so many great little wine tips and juicy nuggets along the way. I appreciate you spending your time with us.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Joel, until next time, I wish you all the best with all of your different projects. You've got a lot on the go. We look forward to keeping up with you and your wines as they come on our liquor store shelves.
I love it. Thank you very much for the support, having me on the show.
All right. Cheers, Joel.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed my chat with Joel Gott. Here are my takeaways. Number 1, I like Joel's advice to shop for great vintages first, rather than for brands. You can find so many gems this way, often underpriced too. 2, the excitement of harvest is often the spark that ignites a passion to make wine. So much of an entire year's work depends on just a few weeks. It's nerve-wracking and exhilarating. 3, I love Joel's pairing ideas for gourmet burgers, from Cabernet with a classic cheeseburger, to Zinfandel for racier burgers like kimchi with pickled veggies and spicy aioli, or green chili and jack cheese. The sweet fruit and spice of the Zin is a great match for the spice and salt in the burgers and the fixins. 4, I can empathize with Joel how a corked wine can ruin the reputation of a winery with a customer for good. And I like how he describes a screw cap as being able to seal in a moment in time, especially the freshness of Sauvignon Blanc. In the show notes, you'll find links to the wines we tasted, the video version of this chat, where you can find me on Facebook Live every second Wednesday at 7 p.m., and how you can join me in a free online wine and food pairing class. That's all in the show notes at nataliemclean.com/106. You won't want to miss next week when I chat with Master Sommelier Bruce Wallner about Canada's Best Sommelier competition, what it takes to compete and win the title, as well as insider tips to help you choose better wines from a restaurant list. He joins me from Toronto next week. In the meantime, if you missed episode 15 with Leslie Brown, the president of the Canadian Association of Professional Sommeliers, go back and take a listen. We chat about which questions to ask the sommelier so that you get a great bottle every time. These are also the same questions you can ask in liquor stores too. I'll share a short clip with you now to whet your appetite.
This one always comes to the top of my 5 most embarrassing stories. And I was with a colleague, and we were fortunate enough to visit Graham's courthouse at the time. And the owner himself, Rupert Symington, was showing us around. And we had stepped into the old lagares where they hand stomped the grapes back in the day in order to extract the color and make an optimum part. And in these cement lagares, which are big troughs, they had these windows. So my colleague and I thought it would be really fun to take photos of each other through these little holes in the wall, until Rupert Symington informed us that's where the men would pee during their breaks on the foot stomping. So that quickly ended our giggling and fun, and we took things a little more seriously.
I guess they were well framed, those photos.
2 embarrassing stories right off the bat.
Excellent. You are one of us, Leslie. If you liked this episode, please tell one friend about it this week, especially someone you know who'd be interested in the wine tips that Joel Gott shared. Thank you for taking the time to join me here. I hope something great is in your glass this week. Perhaps a robust California Cabernet that pairs perfectly with a cheeseburger.
You don't want to miss one juicy episode of this podcast, especially the secret, full-bodied bonus episodes that I don't announce on social media. So, subscribe for free now at nataliemclean.com/subscribe. Meet me here next week. Cheers.